We are on Kuf Zion Amid Aleph, 107A1. 107A1. Okay. 107A1. All right. So there we go. I see you, Charlie. Can you hear me, Charlie? Just making sure.
I can hear you, but I can hear a lot of noise in the background.
Very good. Very good. So Jerry's right. We're here. Jerry and my father's come on his way in as well. So Charlie, you're the only man on Zoom. So you're special. So here we are. We have been talking about for the last day or so Kiddush, Havdalah, all the machinations, all the strange cases of how you put it together, what do you put it together, what blessings you go. We're still moving our way through it, and then we're going to eventually get to the other part of our Mishnah, which of course is going to be about Pesach night itself, which starts with that Seba. It happens to be that this afternoon, if anybody's interested, at 12:15, I'm giving a Pesach shir to the Boca Kolo for about 25 minutes. If anybody's interested on that very subject on Haseba. But anyway, so here we go.
Is it on Zoom?
What, is it on Zoom? I don't know, but if I can, I'll let you know. It sort of was ad hoc. I don't know how it worked itself out. Anyways, Amar Rabba says Rabba, right? Literally on the top, 107A1, first words. Amar Rabba, Hilchaso. Therefore, now what is the halacha? We've been banging our heads here for 2 dafim. What exactly is halacha? And here it says like this. To'am mekadesh. If one tastes the food before Kiddush. So you came home from shul Friday night, you were starving, and you took a bite. Im kol zeh, that you took a bite, you can say Kiddush, you can sanctify the Shabbos with the big Kiddush Friday night. The To'am my father just came in, he's on Zoom, and here, he's getting very confused. Thank you very much. There you go. Ethan, my father, Ethan. There we go. So now, the To'am Mabdil, the To'am Mabdil, and if one tastes the food before Havdalah, so again, it's already Matzah Shabbos. You came home from shul, and you forgot. You sat down to have Malava Malka. And then you remember, okay, I'm having my bagel, and I've got to do Havdalah. The halacha is you're allowed to. But, Kiddush be'erev Shabbos, but if somebody gets there, and it's Friday night, and for whatever reason, he forgets to make Kiddush the entire Friday night. So now what happens with the big Kiddush? The Kiddush, the sanctification Kiddush, right? The one that we do Friday night. The din is Mekadesh v'hoylech kol hayoim kulei ad Motzei Shabbos. He's got the whole 25 hours of Shabbos to make up that Kiddush. Yes, you're supposed to do it at night when the Shabbos comes in. That's the time to sanctify the Shabbos. Nonetheless, if you screw it up and you forgot, okay, I'm giving you the entire Shabbos to go ahead and make the Kiddush. But me shaloi hibdu b'motzei Shabbos, and one who did not say Havdalah Motzei Shabbos, you completely forgot. So in other words, you got to make the bagels. So you run out of Shabbos, Ethan listening in over here, and you got to make the bagels, and you completely forget to make Havdalah. You've got, says the Gemara, Hamavdil b'hoylech kol haShabbos kuloi. You can go and make Havdalah throughout the entire week. I'm making an underline of the entire week. Entire week means until Tuesday evening. Again, the first 3 days, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, belong to the Shabbos that left. Starting Wednesday, which of course starts at night because the Jewish day starts at night, we start with, then you're ready, you got to stop. So you have until Tuesday night. This version says, Hoylech kol haShabbos kuloi. But now there's a different version. Amema pasach lo shemati derabah b'hai lishna. Amema taught this halach of Rava, according to this version. Amar Rava, Hilchasa, therefore, To'am Mikadesh, somebody who tastes food when he comes home from shul Friday night and then wants to make Kiddush, it's okay, he can make Kiddush. To'am Mavdil, somebody who comes home from shul Motzei Shabbos and starts his Malav Malka and then wants to make Havdalah, he can make Havdalah. Mishala Kiddush Erev Shabbos, one who does not make Kiddush Friday night, Mikadesh V'Lechol Yom Kulo, is allowed to recite it all through Shabbos. By the way, those who are Hatzalah members, this halacha applies. If they have to run out on a call, if for whatever reason they get trapped in the hospital, whatever it is, they can make Kiddush obviously the next day. And it has happened. It has happened.
The question is whether he's allowed to eat
Kiddush. But from here it says that you are, because you're allowed to eat and then make Kiddush. Remember it said Tom Mekabel.
Yeah, but you're making Torah is only with the end.
Yes, but okay, but the whole Hatzalah
I
case.
just think he forgot.
Yeah, so I think in the case of Hatzalah, they would say you can't become weak and all that. Anyways, Mi Shaloi Hebrew b'Motzei Shabbos, one who does not recite Havdalah on Motzei Shabbos. Now this is different. Mavdol v'Hoylech Kol Hayoim Kuloi, not Kol HaShabbos Kuloi. He only has Sunday to make the kiddush, to make Havdalah. According to this version, he only gets till Sunday night. At that point, when you're ready into the work week, so that's the two different versions. So now the Gemara is going to go in and learn from here which version we're really going to go with. Amalei Mar Yanuko Mar Keshisha Berei Derav Chisda Rabashi Mar Yanuka Mar Kanishta, the sons of Chisda said to Rabashi. You'll notice Rav Chisda had two sons whose name was Mar. Mar Yanuka meant Mar the junior. Mar Keshisha is Mar the senior. Why was they called Mar? So there's either two ways. Either he expected great things from them, Mar being a lashon of Rav, or Mar that was obviously at that time in Klal Yisrael, and he called him Mar to make the point of the Rebbeinu Yisrael. Zimnin Chode Ikla Amema La'asrei. One time Amema came to visit our house, and we didn't have any wine in which to recite Havdalah. Aisnele Shivra B'loi Abdul. So we brought in dates beer. That means beer not made from the best of things, from dates. But he did not recite Havdalah. Uva Tava, and therefore he went to bed hungry, because he held, like my father just said, that if you don't make Havdalah, you can't deliberately go ahead and have a meal. You can't start Malav Malka deliberately without making Havdalah. The next day we went out of our way and we ran out and we bought a bottle of wine. And now he made Havdalah and he ate something. Now, Lashana, the next year, the same thing happened. Suik Lasri, again, Amema came to our place. And again, we didn't have wine. Amema should have learned his lesson. Itma Sikhra, and again, we brought in date beer for Havdalah. Now, said Amema, Omar, Ihachi Ibazai, therefore, Chamar Medino. This is considered Chamar Medino, the wine of the province. You say that. Abdul Vitoyin. So he recited Havdalah over the date beer and ate something. So as Sherry just pointed out, it means if you have nothing, you're allowed to take Coca-Cola and use it to make Havdalah. There's no question about it. There's a big shaila in halacha actually whether you're allowed to use milk, because more people drink Coca-Cola than they drink milk. So is milk Chamar Medina or not? It's actually a shaila in halacha who's losing its market share because people are getting healthier. So the Chamar Medina of the land may change, but at this moment in time, there's no question about it. You could even have a coffee on a coffee. Shmamino to us. We learn out from here three different things. Shmamino hamavdu betfilo sar shiyabdal ala kois. We learn from here that even if somebody, and then And Charlie mentioned this a few days ago, and I said the Gemara is going to talk about, even though you make Atachayna Tonu in Shul from Shabbos, so you were Mavdil and see, and you brought your car Friday night, so you wait, and after Shabbos you go Mavdil ben Kodesh L'chol, and you hop into your car and you drive home. So, in that case, in comes and obviously Ameimar certainly he would not go ahead and eat until he made Atola in the house. Shmamina, Hamavdu Betfila, just because I say Atachan Antonu into Abdullah Kois, you still have to make Havdalah on a Kois. And again, because a cup of wine, we talked about this before, from the Pasuk and Shir Hashirim and the Zavaita, we sanctify or de-sanctify to be Mavdal or to be Mekadesh over a cup of wine because it has a Chashivus. It's an idea, it is the marker, as it were. The marker, the sign, the simon that this is what it called, this is the break. Second of all, from here we learn that you cannot on purpose go ahead and start Malaba Malka without making Havdalah. If you forgot, the word the sky is not going to fall on you. But lechatchila, you cannot go ahead and start eating without Havdalah. Ushma mino, mi shelo hibdil. The Matzah Shabbos, somebody who's not Mavdil, forgets to make Havdalah Matzah Shabbos, he wants to look on with you. Mavdil v'hoylech kol Shabbos kuloi, he can go ahead and make Havdalah throughout the entire week until Tuesday night. Says Tosfos, the third Tosfos on the page, the small Tosfos, Shma Mino, Lo Yishamina Minei, Ela Kol Hayoim, Ela Nokad Hochi Mishum Da'aloch came. If you think about from Ameimar, when did he make Havdalah? The next morning, Sunday morning, they ran out and got a bottle of wine. Sunday morning, they got the bottle of wine. So from there, from the story of Ameimar, you could only learn out that Sunday I can make Havdalah. How do you see you can go until Tuesday night from the story? So Tyson says the truth is you can't tell from the story. You cannot tell from the story of Ameimar that you can go until Tuesday night. But since Lamaisa, the halacha is that you can have until Tuesday evening to make Havdalah if you forgot it Motzei Shabbos. So here the Gemara puts down that Ad Shabbos. And that's the reason why in the Yom of Yom Revi, we add in those two psukim at the end of Kel Nekames Hashem on Wednesday, which is not the same capital in Tehillim. It's not the same portion in Tehillim. It's actually the next one. Kel Nekames ends two psukim early and then begins L'chuna Ramana. So they're connected. The Wednesday Yom in Tehillim is connected with the Chunarana that obviously we bring in Shabbos with on Kabbalah Shabbos. So that's the break again. So we make a physical break to try to show where the spiritual break takes place. And that's what we do. Okay, we are 107.82. 107.82. Since we brought this up and we said that Chamar Medina, that means Coca-Cola, or in the case of the Gemara, beer dates from beer, beer from dates, is Chama Medina, I can make Havdalah, am I allowed to make Kiddush on beer? It's one thing to say I can make Havdalah on beer. And again, Kiddush over here means Friday night Kiddush, the big Kiddush, the Friday night Kiddush. Omar, he says,
that's only if you don't have one.
That's only if you don't have one. Well, actually, no, I don't want to say that. We learned that Rav said, if I goes by what I like. Yeah. So there's no, it's not a fixed halacha. I don't want to say that. From here, the question, the Gemara simply seems to be saying, can I go ahead and make Kiddush on beer? Omar, Hashtoma Pirzmu Zuma, Useini, Va'asne. Beer made out of barley, figs, or berries, which is a higher level. It's an IPA beer. It's a fancier beer, right? Those beers. The boy name Rav, when I acquired of Rav, whether kiddush could be made over them. The Rav Merachia, Rav turned around and asked Rav Chia. But Rav Chia me Rebbe, and Rav Chia turned around and asked Rebbe HaKadosh, Rebbe the Prince, Veloy Pashat lay, and he was not Pashat it. In other words, we didn't know whether those higher class beers could be used for Kiddush. Shichra mibayad, then is there any question that the commonplace, the cheap light beer, the cheap light Miller beer that barely has any taste, radical like Koshkin, I can't make Kiddush, and because of the suffix dioraisa lechumra, a suffix of whether you can use something, and uncertainty if you can do something in a biblical halacha, we don't use it because Kiddush by night is definitely dioraisa. Savramine, the Talmidim of the yeshiva understood from this back and forth. Kiddushu b'loy mekadosh alav. A kiddush I can't make over the Miller Lite, Abel Abdullah and Abdillah, but I can recite Abdullah even on the date beer, on the cheap beer. Amalahu Rav Chizda, Haki Amarab. No, this is what Rav saying. Kishem she'ei makdishin alav, kach ei makdishin alav. Just like you can't make Kiddush on it, you can't make Abdullah on it. It manami, not just Rav, but even his counterpart Shmuel. Amar Rav Tachlifa Barabimi Amar Shmuel, Kishem Shem Makdishin Alav, Kach Ein Mabdilin Alav. Just like we don't say Kiddush over it, so we don't say Abdullah over it. Okay? Now again, the real question is, so if you really, the truth of the matter is, if this is your Chamar Medina, the truth of the matter is, you could use it. You could use it. In the first place, you shouldn't. But if you don't have wine, and all you can find in your fridge is a beer, and let's say that beer is coming from Kirkland, it's a Costco beer. It's not Heineken or Corona. Before Corona was looked at the other way. You can still use it. You can still use it. Now we have a case. Having just said that you shouldn't use it, Daddy, Zok the Gemara, Yokasha, Levi, Shoda Leila Rebbe, Shichra Bartalisa Magini. Levi sent Rebbe date beer that was crushed 13 different times. So it was an excellent date beer. It was a higher class date beer. Toma. So, Tame, it was mamish filtered. It was filtered. It was everything. It was great. Tame ha b'sim tuvo. Rebbe tasted it and said, ooh, this is Tam Ganeden. This is a smooth beer. Ama, kegoyim zeh, like this, royu lekadi shalom. Like this, it's roya to use such a beer to make kiddush on it. V'loima love kol shirais v'sushpachai sheboilam. And to say all of it, all the songs and praises of the world. And all the praises of the world. And then, B'layla tzareh, but at night, he got diarrhea from this one bits. So the next morning he said, Abba, meyasro mefayes, on this kind of thing, we're going to go, something that causes an affliction, we're going to appease. Look at the Rashbam, the last skinny line. The Rashbam, the last skinny line. Sisenu mefayes, bitmiyah, with a wonderment. Something that's going to ultimately bring pain. With this way I will appease and be willing and accepted by Hashem, the loimer Allah Kiddush, to say on the Kiddush. So he said, absolutely not. I changed my mind completely. It might taste great, but its effects are terrible. So too sweet. So in other words, it's like I would have said, of course, last night I went to Boca Grill and got a laffa with all the works, with the fried onions, the tahina,
because his wife wasn't here,
and because my wife wasn't here, and I'm eating away at it, and I said exactly. I said, this is great. Tom Gan Eden. Today I'm going for a blood test. Let's see what happens. Exactly. Exactly. See, so I'm just following the ways of the Gemara. That's it. I'm just following the ways of the Gemara. Amar Rav Yosef. Edur berabim lo ishti shichra. They said, I will vow, I will make a neder in public that I will not drink date beer. Look at Tosfos. Adad, the fourth Tosfos. Adad berabim. The Ksabab, because he holds. The Rabim ein lo yafara. If you make a promise in public, you cannot get away, you can't do ataras nedarim. The ein halacha came. The truth is, the halacha is not that. El dafka al das Rabim. If you say on the das of the Rabim, on the basis of the public, I'm making a promise, because then you would require the entire Rabim to come and be made for neder. You would need everybody else. This is the reason why, for example, this is the definition of a non-profit. Even a non-profit has no owners. Why is that? Because everybody owns it. A shul, right, BJC, is not owned by one person. It's owned by the kehillah. So that makes them, when things owned by a kehillah are much more difficult. Because the reason why it makes it, because it requires everybody now. Everybody has, as it were, a share in the thing. So times is here. Yeah, exactly. That's Rabin. Ein lo yafaro b'mokem achem mefarish. Okay, I just thought it's an interesting thesis. So I made a vow. It's right. Rabbi Yosef said, I make a vow in public. I won't treat thank you. Omer Rava, it says Rava. We're now on 10783. 10783. Ishti mezuzim lo ishti shikra. I would rather drink the water that I soaked the flax in and not drink date beer. Date beer, Miller Lite, is no good. The Omarova, Tehei, Shaikuse, Shikra, Manda, Mekache, Shikra. May the date beer be the everyday drink of the person that uses date beers to make Kiddush on. So don't use it for Kiddush. But Rav Mishchache Rav Huna de Kaddish Shikra. But Rav Huna found that Rav himself, the same Rav that was talking here before, was using date beer to make Kiddush. Amalei, Shorei Abba Lamike Isteri Mishichra. It appears that Abba, that was Rav's real name, Abba has begun to earn money by selling the beer. So maybe it was a criticism, maybe it was not. Depending on how you want to look at this. Because the halacha was, the Rav, he didn't say that Rav was a Mekayim Kiddush. He didn't say you have to make Kaddish again. You can do it Kiddush. Elamai, it was a quasi thing. Tanu Rabbanan, Emakdishin Ela Alayayin. We do not make Kiddush over anything but wine. Ve'ein Mevorchen Ela Alayayin. And we do not make any brachas except on yayin. So on the last part, the Gemara jumps all over it. Atu Ashikra V'Amaya. But on beer and water, what are you talking about? Of course we make a shakol, right? In fact, thank you, Jerry. So, Amar Abaya Hachikama. Ein Oymen Habab Koi Shel Bracha Levarech El Alayayin. Do not say, bring a cup of bring a cup of bracha, birchas hamazon. In other words, when you go, Rabbi Sai miborech, Rabbi Sai mibel and benching. Rabbi Sai, we want to bench. Remember, we said the best thing is benching ala kais. Bring a cup of wine. Don't bring a cup of coffee. Don't bring a cup of beer. Bring a cup of wine. What? And the reason for it again is because of the chashivos. Beer, as we all know, is what you sit around to watch the All-Star game. It's not what you use. It's not at the All-Star game. Did you drink wine or did you drink beer? The answer is, you come here and you drink beer. With the Rebbeinu Shalom, you drink wine.
Anything that's sacramental.
There we go. Needs wine. Right. Anything sacramental, meaning something like you sanctify, needs wine. Tanu Rabbanan, Ein Magdishin Ala Sheikha. We do not say Kiddush on date beer. Mishum Rabbi Elazar by Rabbi Shimon Amru. Rabbi Elazar says in the name of Rabbi Shimon, Magdishin, you are allowed to. You're allowed to make it. Another halach. For the tasting of a wine, you only need a small amount. That means if you need to fill it up, if you put in a little bit of wine, you only have a little bit of wine, and then you need to pour something else into it, it's okay.
Yeah.
The world's not coming to it, dude. Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda.
He's saying that you make Kiddush, it's enough if you take only a small sip. You don't have to drink a revius.
Very good. Good. Oh, good. That's a good point. Thank you. I touched it up wrong. The tasting of the wine. That means after I make the bracha, when I make a bar priya gofen, all I have to do is go ahead and have a small amount, a sip. I don't have to drink. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda, Malay Lugma. You have to have a cheek full. You got to have a full cheek, which is really a quarter of a revius. A Malay Lugma is a quarter of a revius.
This is a shear that in Yom Kippur you would be high covered.
Very good. So my father just said on Yom Kippur, the shear of achila when it comes to drink is a Malay Lugma. To be chayiv chorus on Yom Kippur. So when if somebody has to drink on Yom Kippur, he has to take medicine. They always tell him take a schnapps glazel,
Right.
and it's less than a Malay Lugma. That's where it comes from. It's less than the shear, just like a shear achila is always a kazayis, is always an olive size. The shear of drinking is always a Malay Lugma.
You have to wait a certain period of time.
Kedei achilas pras.
No, because if you don't wait, you take a
so then
sip, it's started
one to the other. So my father's also saying with regard to that, you obviously have to pause, probably about every 2 minutes when it comes to drinking, as opposed to eating. It would say the length of time would be a little longer. Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav, v'chein Tani Rav Gidul the Min Garish. So says Rav Gidul of Narish. Hamikadesh v'toim Mole Lugma Yotze. One who recites Kiddush and tastes a Mole Lugma cheekful has Mekayim his Kiddush obligation. Im Lav Lo Yotze. Amar Rav Nachman by Yitzchak Anan Tanina Lo. I taught this Paraiso Loi Gidul Bar Menashe. Not Gidul Bar Menashe, but Loi Gidul Bar Aman Yomi, nor by Rav Gidul Amenaye, Ela Gidul Stama. I taught it by somebody with the name of Gidul. Says the Gemara, Lamainaf Geminu, who cares what his last name was? Lememra Adidei, in order to contrast one saying against another saying.
It was a steal.
If there's a contradiction between what he's saying, you can only do it, and that's very important. So, by the way,
you can ask the question because you don't know.
And in fact, this is a very important rule in learning the Gemara. You know that there's Taisvis on the side. Many a time you will find one Taisvis says something that another Taisvis completely contradicts. It's not called a contradiction in the Taisvis because the Baalei Taisvis were over 100-year period. They were the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren and the great-great-grandchildren of Rashi. So while they were all related more or less, but not all of them, they were different people. So when Taisus is written, now that does not mean that you try to reconcile. You do try to reconcile the two different versions, two different opinions of the Taisus, but it's not called a stira. It's not called a contradiction because of exactly this. Because I don't know. It's very important in knowing, in learning, if you're going to compare and contrast, it has to be clear who's the author that you're comparing and contrasting.
Like the Tanoim,
two different Tanoim, and therefore there's the right. And that, by the way, is always something I'm not getting into today. But the fact that Rav and Shmuel, or Abaye, or Shammai and Hillel, or Abaye and Rava, always argue hundreds and hundreds of times through Shas is not because one guy said one thing, so the other guy was simply arguing. It was different areas in philosophy. They saw the world differently. There was really one argument each time in philosophy, and the Mela they saw it, and the Mela the halacha came out a different way. But you shouldn't think they just argued for the sake of arguing. We learn in yeshiva too often that you think they're arguing just to make the Gemara interesting. In fact, that's not the case. Now we begin.
Same situation. If you lend money, let's say, to a person, there's two people with the same name in the same city.
Right.
Shnei Yosef and Shimon.
Right.
And each one denies that he borrowed from you.
You have a problem.
You cannot collect.
Right. So I don't know if you heard that. Charlie, my father mentioned the case. If you lend money to Yosef ben Shimon, and there are two Yosef ben Shimons in Boca Raton, and you didn't write down both Yosef ben Shimon who lives in here, Mishpachas this, and now you want to collect the money, and each one says, "I'm not the Yosef ben Shimon," Fafutch, you're not getting your money back because of exactly
maybe you get them from both.
No. In fact, this leads me to the famous Rabbi Yaakov Miller joke. Okay, Jerry knows it. The rule is, how do you know that a tradition is stronger than a din, is stronger than an halacha? Because the halacha is when Reuven lends money to Shimon, Shimon has to pay back Reuven. The minig is as nisht. The minig is that Shimon doesn't pay back Reuven. And that's the proof that a minig is stronger than a din. Anyways, and I can tell you there is some truth, unfortunately, to that statement.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the mincha. It goes without saying. So Sabbath lemincha. We said that on Erev Pesach, either by mincha gedola, that means 6.5 hours before 6.5 hours into the day, you had to stop eating. Remember having a main meal, or mincha ketana at 9.5 hours before 9.5 hours. You had to stop eating on Erev Pesach in order to have a big appetite for the Seder. So now we're getting into it. Iboyelu. Sabach lemincha. Gedoyla tonight. Does it mean mincha gedoyla 6.5 hours? That means a half hour. So it means before a half hour after noon, 12:30. Or we're now on 107.84. Or perhaps it means mincha ketana 3:30, i.e. 9.5 hours into the day. So the Gemara says like this: do we mean 12:30 mishum Pesach, because we're dealing with the Pesach offering? When is the carbon Pesach brought? The afternoon of Erev Pesach. I'm afraid if you're going to get involved in a wonderful meal. We're now on Kuf Zayin on the base 107b1. You're going to get so preoccupied with the meal, you know what's going to happen. You're going to forget, and you're going to forget to do the Pesach. Or perhaps or maybe it means not close to 3:30 in the afternoon, 9.5 hours into the day. And now we're worried about the matzah. We're afraid because you're afraid that you're going to eat such a big meal that when you get to your matzah, you're going to be so stuffed, you're just going to force the matzah down your throat as an excessive eating. And the halacha is achila gasa loy shanei achila. An excessive eating is not called eating, and you would not be mechakayim your mitzvah of the erev toichlu matzahs. Even if you would eat the matzah, because you're stuffing it down your throat, you're filled to the gizzard, and you're just stuffing it in, you would not be mekayim the mitzvah. Amar Rabbeinu says, Rabbeinu Tashma, afilu Agrippas HaMelech, shu rogel le'echel b'teish shoyis, even King Agrippas HaMelech, which the Rashbam says was a kosher king. If you look at the Tosfos on the side, the third Tosfos, afilu Agrippas HaMelech, Pirish Rashbam, Melech kosher, u'bnei Chashmonoim haben. Let's just stop over there. I don't want to get into the whole thing of who he really was. Who didn't sit down to eat.
He was a super.
Well, I got you right. I don't want to get it. Tosfos gets it. Pashtus. Oops, I think I just got cut out. I'm so sorry. There we go. I don't know. Oh, there we go, Charlie. Okay. Okay, so it says like this: ate between 2 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's when he first started eating. On Erev Pesach, he didn't eat until it became dark. So it says like this: if it means that we stop eating before 3:30 in the afternoon, that's the novelty of Agrippas. That he who normally ate between 2 and 3 o'clock, he was close enough to Mincha Ketana, he didn't eat. If we're talking about 12:30, close to 12:30, so you stop eating at 12 o'clock. My rebusa da gripas. Chal Isra Leimi Kara. It was already awesome before you even got to his normal time of eating. It was awesome to eat. So says the Gemara.
And he's no different
and he's
than
no,
any other Jew.
At the end of the day, he's just a Jew. At the end of the day, as we always say, every Jewish king, in fact, a Jewish king, I'm going to be talking about this afternoon in the Boca
Just because he's a king doesn't mean that.
In fact, what bracha do we say by a king? By a Jewish king, we say shecholak nechvoidai. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mechalek, took off part of his covet. On a Goyish king, you've seen Trump or even Biden, right, or Harris. You'd say shenosa nechvoidai, who gives from his kingship. The reason is, a Jewish king does not have any covet of his own. It's not his covet. He only exists because the pasuk says, "Saim tosim alecha melech." You shall appoint for yourself a melech. That I, Hashem, allowed you to appoint yourself a king, right? So his honor is only because HaKadosh Baruch Hu sliced off a chelik of his own honor and gave it to a Jewish king. Shecholak b'chvoidei. Mashenken, a Goyish king, has his own honor. So it says Nasa b'chvoidei. The Hamakna, the Hafla, the Hamakna talks about this. Anyways, so here we go like this. So if it was what it calls, so it says the Gemara Ela Samach Lamincha Ketana Tanah. So you're saying that we're talking about our Mishnah means Samach Lamincha means Samach to the Mincha Ketana, Saif. My Rebusa de Agrippas. What's so great about Agrippas? Hamaitile Zamani Surah, the time of the Issa arrived when he was going to sit down between 2 and 3 o'clock. So says the Gemara, Mahu, the same I might have thought, teaches Shois La Agrippas, Ka'arba Shois Lidanu. That the 9th hour of Agrippas has the same effect as us eating between 9 and 10 o'clock in the morning. What does that mean? When we eat breakfast, we get an appetite. We don't lose our appetite for the nighttime. Agrippas, who ate every day between 2 and 3, clearly trained himself to have an appetite for the evening meal, for the nighttime meal. So we would have thought that, says the Gemara 107. Kamash Malan as Nij. And so now, this is where we're going to stop. We're up to Amar Rabasi. Amar Rabasi, it's really not Rav Yossi, it's Amar Rabasi, and that's where we're picking it up to Bara. Very good.